Let's go, let's go, let's go. It's time to make it do what it do, baby. Happy Monday. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Happy Monday. Today is July 22nd, Monday, 2024. Good afternoon. My hope and expectation is that your Monday is going absolutely amazing. If you're coming on, joining us live, please be sure to put in the comments what city you're watching us from. I appreciate all of you for continuing to watch our show, our live shows as frequently as we can. We're on here Monday through Friday, 12 o'clock noon Eastern Standard Time. We do our best to show up here on the Ramon Preston Show. My goal for this show is really to just educate you, to inform you, and to really give you some tools that you can use as an entrepreneur or as someone who's looking to use business as a gateway to become financially free. For those of you that don't know, my name is Ramon Preston. My squad and I, we're live right here in Buckhead, Atlanta. Today is Monday, July the 22nd. You are watching the Ramon Preston Show, and we're going to be talking about holding companies and assets. Holding companies and assets. Now, I've said this so many times before, but it's worth saying it again. One of the reasons why I talk so much about holding companies is because I believe every entrepreneur who intends to get into business should have a holding company. They should own a holding company and primarily use that holding company that they have and own as a parent company to hold or to own other assets. And when you have a holding company, even though you may have other business assets, the ownership of that holding company, it automatically just puts you in a mental position to start working on other assets. And so that's why today I'm talking about holding companies and assets. The both go hand in hand. It's kind of like having a trust, and having items that you're going to fund the trust with. It's a very similar concept. So if you ever heard anyone talking about owning a trust, they will also talk about funding that trust. That's where the idea of a trust fund comes from. Well, it's easy to understand a trust and how to fund a trust when you already understand holding companies and assets. One of the biggest differences is trusts are typically tied to a person's estate, their family, their personal legacy, where holding companies are not always tied to a personal estate. They're typically tied to a business operation and a strategy that you're using in your business operation to leverage, to maximize, to get the biggest bang for your buck, to lower your taxes, to maximize your profits. All this stuff that I'm talking about are things that I know 100% for sure that a lot of entrepreneurs know nothing about. I used to be that entrepreneur that didn't know anything about trust. I didn't know anything about trust funds. I didn't know anything about hedge funds, holding companies, conglomerates, enterprises. All I knew was I was an entrepreneur. I wanted to get out here and hustle and make some money. I wanted financial freedom. I wanted time freedom. And I was willing to do whatever I needed to do to make that happen. But because of the lack of knowledge in my early days as an entrepreneur, it caused a lot of delays. And I wanna cut those delays out of your equation. You don't have to take 10, 15, 20 years to get to a certain place in your business that you're doing the things that we're talking about doing. Like, I have a lot of clients that I have worked with in the past, a lot of clients that I still work with who are technically startup companies. They're startups. That means they just getting started in business. They haven't even sold a product or service. They are pre-revenue. And even then, at the pre-revenue stage, I'm still talking to them about how they need to position themselves on top of the holding company, typically a LLC. And if they do have an idea for a product that they want to sell, this is product. If they do have an idea for a service that they want to provide, that's a service, it's best to package those products and services inside of other operating LLCs that are not owned by you necessarily, but they're owned by your holding company. So this is the foundation to really leveraging all the assets that you do ultimately have. All right. So if you're tracking me today, we're talking about holding companies and assets. Now, you might have not really been following me for the last couple of weeks. I've been talking a lot about assets. I've been talking a lot about acquisitions and different things. And I want to kind of make it all make sense because, again, this is you. Your goal should be to own a holding company. All right. Even if you own other LLCs, personally, at some point, you can insert a holding company in between you and those other LLCs so that your holding company is the parent company. For me, and based on my understanding and knowledge, this is the perfect picture for an entrepreneur to stand at the top of that holding company, for that holding company to stand on top of other companies, and then you can begin to build a legitimate enterprise. Now, where does the assets play into the holding company? Well, assets play a very important role because in order for this holding company to continue to increase in net worth, in order for this holding company to increase in EV or enterprise value. In most cases, in order for this holding company and this enterprise to increase in overall revenue, gross profits, net profits, or whatever term you want to use, in order for these things to happen, you and your holding company need to own assets that are actually monetizing, generating enough revenue, growing and creating enough cash flow so that your net worth, your enterprise value, and your revenue continues to go up. And if you just look at what most of us as entrepreneurs do every day, we're doing a lot of this already. We have just not compartmentalized it to make it make sense. All right. If I just take any entrepreneur, if I just pull any entrepreneur out of a crowd who owns a small business, if I sat down with them and started dissecting everything that they're doing in their business and all the things that they know in their business, about their business, all the relationships, all the experience and the knowledge, I guarantee there will be assets that they will have, either intellectual assets or physical assets that they have that they're not utilizing and leveraging to increase their net worth, to increase their company's enterprise value, and to make more money. I guarantee you, any entrepreneur I pull out the crowd, because most entrepreneurs are not looking at business, they're not looking at what they're doing in business as an asset manager. They're not looking at it as an asset manager. They're not looking at it from the perspective of an investor or a private equity group or a hedge fund manager. I mean, why would you as an entrepreneur when you don't know anything about any of that stuff? You don't even think that stuff applies to you, but it does even on a small business level. So what are some things that we've already talked about doing so that we can increase net worth and enterprise value and revenue inside of the holding company structure? Well, one of the first things that you have to do is you have to start accumulating. You have to start accumulating assets. And you've got to take anything that you consider an asset through an asset accumulation or asset acquisition test, okay? So you have to start accumulating assets. As I said, accumulating assets are more internal, in my estimation. And then you have to start acquiring assets. This is more external. Okay, and in your process of accumulating assets and acquiring assets, you have to conduct the asset test. And what do I mean by the asset test? Well, when there's something that you personally own, something that you personally control, something that you and your spouse have, or if it's some item or piece of property or thing that you think is valuable, that would be considered an asset that you want to accumulate because it's internal. It's a bank account that I have. It's some money I got saved. It's a personal retirement account. It's a vehicle. Maybe it's some relationships or experience, or it's a degree, or it's an opportunity. Whatever the thing is that I personally own and control, I want to look at that thing to see, is it an asset that I need to transfer to my enterprise? Why do I want to transfer it to my enterprise? Because I want to increase my net worth through my company, through my enterprise. I want to increase my enterprise value. I ultimately want to make more money, but I want to have value inside of this whole business system that I can use as leverage to get further quicker. I also want to use this. Sometimes a lot of people use this type of structure to lower their personal taxes, because now they can parlay the business enterprise and do other things that kicks off enough depreciation or kicks off enough opportunities or non-taxable events that give them that runway to increase their net worth, their enterprise value, and their revenue. So one of the ways you conduct the asset test, let me just word it like that, the asset test. How do I conduct the asset test? Well, you conduct the asset test by asking certain questions. Whatever this thing is that I'm identifying as an asset, I need to ask the question. Does that thing have monetary value? All right, so it could be a house I have. Does this house have monetary value? Okay, because if this house is a liability, meaning that it just takes money from me, but it doesn't bring any money to me, maybe that house is not an asset. If there's no equity, if there's no leverage in that house, maybe it's not an asset, maybe it's a liability. So I want to ask the asset test. Does this have monetary value? Is there some dollar value in this house? Whether that's equity that I can take out, maybe I have to refinance the house, maybe I have to sell it. Okay, maybe I have to move out of it and rent it. But if there's a possibility for me to use this as an asset and I can transfer the ownership of it to my company, or at least leverage whatever value it has for my company, then that becomes an asset that I test, and I make sure that I give that power and that position of value to my business. And the list goes on and on. We have a whole lot of things that we talk about every day with our clients on what could be considered an asset. Okay, just in case you don't know what an asset is. Like, I have a list just in my workbook. I have a list of about 30 different assets. I call them common assets that increase your net worth. It could be trademarks, copyrights, intellectual property. That's your knowledge of something. If you're good at something, I know a lot of entrepreneurs who are just good at certain things. They have become masters at certain things. But guess what? They're not utilizing that intellectual property. It's IP. Why aren't they utilizing it? Because they haven't thought about taking the IP that they own, your intellectual property, your understanding. Like I took my IP, my understanding of business structures, my understanding of the basic systems and processes, my understanding of real estate, my understanding of entrepreneurship, of creative tax strategies, creative real estate. I took all that knowledge that I have, my understanding of leadership, business building, relationship building, organizational building, community service. I took all my intellectual property. It's my idea. It's what I know. It's what I have experienced, what I've learned. I took all that and I turned that into an online university called Ramon Preston University. Inside of Ramon Preston University, I have other programs and courses that I offer. But guess what? That means it has monetary value. That means it can be monetized. That means it ultimately increases my enterprise value if I take it out of my big old head, put it on wax, and transfer the ownership of it to that company. That's how you start accumulating assets. Okay? You're not, and again, acquiring assets is a thing too. This is the part of the strategy. But you gotta get good at accumulating assets. And I think everybody should go through this process. One of the first things I tell people that I talk to who are building businesses is, if you go through this process, start with accumulating assets. Start with learning how to identify with things that can actually make you money. That's what you need to start doing first. You need to start there before you try to acquire, unless you're just good enough. Because when you acquire assets, this is external. That means I'm going outside of my business ecosystem. I'm going outside of my own personal life. Now I'm looking at other people's businesses. Now I'm looking at other items that have value, and I'm going to purchase them or acquire those assets that externally, and I'm going to bring them in so that they could be a part of my world. So a very common acquisition of assets is real estate. When you buy a piece of real estate, you acquire it. But again, if you already have a piece of real estate, your business is not necessarily acquiring it as much as you are just accumulating it, bringing it under your umbrella. But if you're a small business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, and you know you want to build a successful business, you know you want an enterprise, you want $1 million company, you want it to be 10 million or whatever, even though these things sound a little sophisticated and complicated, it only sounds sophisticated and complicated because you're not used to talking about it on a regular basis and you don't understand it. But this is the game, ladies and gentlemen. And the more we move into the future, especially for, let's say, the next decade or so, the more we move into the future, the more important it's going to be for you to understand how to be this person standing at the top of a holding company. That person to me is an asset manager. That person to me is a capital raiser. That person to me is a fundraiser. That person to me is an individual who understands positioning inside of an enterprise. If you don't understand that positioning, you're not going to stand on top of that company. You're going to be way down here just trying to hustle a product or a service. Now, do you have to come down here and hustle products and services? Of course you do. Of course you do. Do you have to get down here as a solopreneur and make calls and knock on doors and give presentations and go online and make call to actions and ask people to click the link and go here and there? Of course you do. But you can do this while thinking like this person as well. The problem with a lot of entrepreneurs is they're down here, they just trying to hustle a couple dollars to sell a product or to provide a service, but they don't understand what it is to be that person. And if you don't understand what it is to be that person as an entrepreneur and small business owner in 2024, I don't know if you're going to make it the next 6-7 years, or maybe 7 to 10 years. Let's just say within the next decade. I don't know if you're going to be able to make it. Like, statistics already show that most entrepreneurs fail. Most businesses fail, okay? All you have to do, and I don't even have to give you numbers and stats. All you got to do is just Google how many new businesses fail the first year. How many new businesses fail within the first 3 to 5 years? How many businesses that start are no longer existing after 7 to 10 years? You will see the stats for themselves that most entrepreneurs who start businesses from the ground up, they fail. It's one of the hardest things to do. So if you are starting a new business, or if you have started a new business, it is to your advantage. And I'm saying this to you in hindsight. I wish I wasn't saying this to you in hindsight, meaning that I wish I knew this 21 years ago when I decided that me and my wife was going to be full-time entrepreneurs. I didn't know this 21 years ago. I didn't know it 11 years ago. Okay? So I started coming into some of this knowledge, but it really wasn't until, it's 2024. So we're talking about maybe 6 years ago, 2018, when I restructured my enterprise. That means I just did everything brand new. I restructured everything, right? This is all documented. That was 6 years ago when I really decided that, okay, I need to really take this knowledge and understanding, and I need to apply it and make it make sense to me. And that's when I did this. And once I did that, I started putting a plan together. My wife and I both, of course. We started putting a plan together, and our plan was, of course, to build a brand, to become more masterful at marketing and sales. But in order for us to build a brand and to become more masterful in marketing and sales, we did need some type of product and service. But even then, I did not have to start a new business with products and services. But what I did do was I took my IP and I created programs and products with my IP, my experience and my knowledge, and I utilized that to stand on top of while I was building a brand, but while I was at the same time working towards accumulating assets so that at some point I can graduate and start acquiring assets so that at some point I'm not just selling products and services, all right? But now I am acquiring assets, real estate, businesses, and I am raising capital and syndicating deals and bringing people together because I stand at the top of an ecosystem that has proven to work, all right? So I just hope that all of you that watch my show, that you can appreciate the journey that I've been on, the journey that I am on, and the fact that I really want you to get it. I want you to get it. I want you to be aware of it. I want you to at least know that the endless possibilities of you creating something extraordinarily bigger and better than just a operating business. I want you to know that those endless possibilities are available to you. And you're in a position in 2024 that they're not just available to you, but you can actually lean into them and deploy them even at the small business or solopreneur level. So I hope today's show enlightened you to holding companies and assets, the power of holding companies and assets, the value of holding companies and assets, and how you can take the concept of a holding company, put a business structure together, reposition yourself, and then you can connect them to assets and start accumulating them and acquiring them, and run the asset test to make sure that whatever it is you are accumulating or acquiring, that it has value to your enterprise. It increases the net worth of your enterprise. It generates cash flow, increases revenue, and puts you in the best position to experience the ultimate freedom. So I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for joining the show today. If you have any questions, or if there's anything that we can do to help you along the way, all you have to do is look in the description of today's show. You're going to see our contact information, our number. You'll see a link to some free resources we have available for you on our educational and coaching platform. Feel free to click those links. Feel free to reach out to us with the contact information you see. If you're watching us from Instagram, click the link in our Linktree bio, and you'll see all the same information there as well. All right, we love y'all. We appreciate y'all, and we will see you all tomorrow. Same place, same time, right here on the Ramon Preston Show.